some days you're up and other days you're down. Always tip the dealers and when your waitress comes around, cause sometimes you punt and other times you're round. And you might get cooler to flop the nuts when you sit down. The outcome of the hand don't mean that you made it, cause life's not about the result but more on how you played it. Hitting 8s, 9s, and 10s and all the painted faces. Every day you play is a win, even if you're mucking aces.
Hey y'all, this is Mucking Aces, episode number 10, and we are going to be playing at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, Nevada here for the second part of our Vegas trip. So wish us luck and we'll see you at the tables.
All right, in this very first hand, I pick up King Jack suited. I'm under the gun, and this is the very first hand I'm dealt. I've come to gamble here in Vegas, so I wanted to see how the table would react, and actually it folds around. So this definitely gives me an idea of how timid the table is going to be here moving forward, and I'm looking to take advantage of that. In order for me to do so, I'm going to have to run good as well. So when I'm in the cutoff in this next playable hand, I pick up ace 8 offsuit and I look to bump it up. So I make it 15. I do get one caller behind, and the flop comes pretty good for us. Ace Jack 8 with 2 spades. Flopping top and bottom pair here, I decide to make a continuation bet of $25, and the player who is in the middle position decides to come along. We are about $300 effective here to start the hand, and when the turn comes a 9, I check it as the Queen 10 gets there, but once the turn comes a Queen, and there is a one-liner out there, the player checks to me, so I decide to actually throw out a bet here to see if I can represent this straight that is out there on the board. And he likes to make the call, and we show it down, and we are good. So we're going to scoop that, as I did bet out about $50 there at the end to get some value. I was not putting him on that, maybe a middling pocket pair. Being a little bit card dead here for a while, I decide to open up with ace 5 offsuit under the gun, and I make it 15 more. The player who is in the hijack makes the call, and the player who is in the small blind decides to come along. So we go 3 ways to a flop, which comes ace jack 7, and there are 2 spades out there. I decide to throw out another bet once it's checked to me. The hijack player gets out of the way, and the player in the small blind decides to call. So we go to a turn, which comes the 8 of clubs, and the player in the small blind checks to me, and I throw out a bet of $30. He quickly makes the call. Once he snap calls, I immediately have some alarm bells start ringing, as I believe that he may have a better ace, as he is an older player and has been taking his time to make his decisions. Once the river comes out a king, he checks, I check back, and he turns over ace queen. So we got out of there, only losing the minimum, I think. Not much to think about here when we pick up a premium in the form of pocket queens in middle position. I go ahead and bump it up, 15 more here to go, and the player in the hijack makes the call. The player in the small blind makes the call as well. The small blind player is about $300 effective at this point. So once we see a flop come out, ace king 5 with 2 spades, I check it after it gets checked to me, with the ace and the king being overcards to my pair, and these two having more than likely a hand that beats mine at this point. I'm going to just make the call after the hijack player makes it $10. The turn comes a king of diamonds. I go ahead and check one more time, as the hijack player could have an ace, and they actually decide to check it back. So when the river comes a 6, I just check it, see if we could get to showdown, and the player there shows pocket jacks, so we actually take this one. I start to sense myself playing down to the level of the table, which I should not be doing. And when I pick up ace 3 offsuit under the gun +1, I decide to complete and I just limp along. When we go 4 ways to a flop, I guess I get rewarded for pretty much my horrible play at this point, and the flop comes out ace 3 8 with 2 spades. So flopping top and bottom pair again here, I decide to check for a bit of deception, which I should not be doing. I should just go for some immediate value, but I really was playing pretty poorly at this point. The player to my right decides to lead out when a jack comes on the turn, and we get 2 callers. The player to his right decides to come along as well. In this instance, it is the player in the big blind who is about $400 effective. I go ahead and throw out a bet of $20 once it gets checked to me. The player in the big blind makes the call when the river comes out that 6 of clubs, and the player who is under the gun folds. I show my 2 pair, and he shows Jack 3. So I have him beat there, and I take down this small pot, which I'm pretty disappointed in at this point. I guess I'm going to get what I deserve in this hand for playing so bad. I pick up pocket tens in the big blind. So I go ahead and actually bump it up once it gets limped around to me. And I end up going 3 ways to a flop when the player to my left here, who is in the hijack, makes a call. She had not been playing very many hands at all. So I just thought that she was very conservative and a very tight player. The player across from me here had been showing down pretty much any junk hands except for that previous hand in where he showed 2 pair, but he had been fairly loose. But when the flop comes ace, queen, jack, all over pairs to my hand, I figure that one of them could have an ace in this instance. Now, I do have that straight draw, so I decide to barrel as they had been fairly timid here, and see if I could just blow them off of the hand. So me thinking that I can continue to fire here after I throw out an initial bet on the flop, waiting to see what comes on the turn. I'm thinking I'm just going to keep going with it. But when the jack of spades comes on the turn, I decide to check here. The player in the hijack checks as well. And the player who you can see on screen across from me, he stops to think about it for quite a long time. And he ends up donking out here. So he throws out a bet of $100. And at this point, I'm kind of just over the hand, really. I'm putting the hijack player on some sort of premium, more than likely having an ace in her hand. So I'm thinking that I'm really beat here most of the time. Well, when they go heads up here to a river, and the river comes out a 6 of clubs, the player in the hijack decides to shove all in, and the player across from me decides to make the call. And when they announce their hand, I'm pretty much just blown away. The player across from me here, he has 7 deuce, so I guess I'm pretty much owned by him and his bet there. And we're going to listen in on what the player in the hijack says she has. Well, I guess what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, y'all, so don't give me too much grief over that one in the comments. I do pick up 6-8 suited in the small blind here a little while later. Everyone folds to a bet, and also 6-4 in the big blind. I lead out, and everyone folds to a bet as well once I get a 4 on the river. So those very small pots lead into this 10 jack of spades hand. I'm in middle position, and I decide to bump it up here again. And I see a flop 3 ways. That flop comes out Jack 2 3 with 2 clubs. I throw out a continuation bet, and everyone decides to fold as well. So I do take out a bunch of the dead money that's out there, and just try to slowly and steadily chip up. Here I pick up Jack Queen suited of the diamond variety in the big blind, and I decide to just complete at this point and to see a flop. We see the flop, which comes out Queen 6-7 with 2 clubs. Top pair for me. I check it for a bit of deception to see if anyone wants to lead out. The player here that we've been in a few battles with, I guess, throws out a bet. I make the call. The turn comes a deuce of hearts, so I lead out for another $10, and he decides to make the call. The river comes out the 5 of diamonds, and I'm just going to continue firing here. I throw out a bet of another $20. He quickly makes the call. I show my top pair, and he just ends up mucking his hand after he realizes that I value owned him for a little bit more of his chip stack. And in the last hand of the night, I pick up 7-4 of diamonds, and I go ahead and limp in middle position. I know it's not much analysis going on here, but it's just the hands that happened as I was having a great time in Vegas, and we go to see a flop heads up with the hijack player who doesn't have much behind, and that flop comes out perfect for us. 5-6-3 rainbow. So we flop the straight, pretty much thinking that we have the nuts here. I go ahead and make a small bet of about $20. When the turn comes out a king, I go ahead and just throw in $50 to get the player all in. He snaps it off, and inconsequential ace comes on the river, and we scoop this one and wrap it up here. We had a great time in Las Vegas, so we will hope to get back out to the tables in Sin City real soon.
All right, y'all. Thanks so much for watching episode 10 from Las Vegas, Nevada. Definitely appreciate it. Everyone out there who's been showing support to the channel, really thank you a lot. I appreciate everyone as well leaving comments and giving their feedback. Definitely take it into consideration, and do appreciate the kind words as well. So we got into the game for $300, which was the max buy-in in the 1-3 game, and we were out for $912. So I'll have the numbers up in the screen here. Definitely be sure to check out some of the shirts and the merchandise, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks so much. Peace.